Hey there, cats and kitties. I am the Blues Man, Johnny Blues, and with this video, we'll be discussing my thoughts on the Star Trek fan production, The Holy Core. And I just got to get out of the way right away and say the film's director, Gary O'Brien, has delivered once again. This was just spectacular, and it's something. It's been a long time coming. I think he's been at work on this for 15 months. And, you know, I mean, since the very first announcement that this fan film was going to be, you know, put together, I have just been stoked because I very much loved his former Star Trek fan production, Chance Encounter. I had done a, video discussing that, reviewing and discussing that, and it blew me away. I was genuinely stoked by it and just fell in love with it. The production values for being a fan production, how much it evoked the look and the feel and the vibe of Star Trek The Next Generation, which is very much embodied by this fan film as well, very successfully so, to the point where I was like, okay, why can't this be a continuing series? I mean, CBS and the fan film rules or whatever like that, stipulations, whatever you want to call it, that's why, but I wish we didn't have that and we could actually have this as a full-fledged, Star Trek series kind of thing. Because once again, just everything from all of the actors and performers that are cast in the piece, just being exemplary, being stellar, the direction of it, the special effects and everything like that. I've watched many of his production videos leading up to this, and his talking about the ins and outs of how they would sort of put together each of the sets as far as being representative of parts of the Starfleet vessel. From, how they were going to incorporate walls and then CG effects to, sort of fudge it that it's taking place on the bridge or, the captain's ready room or, the shuttlecraft and things like that. And in watching this, going between the contrasts, the juxtaposition of being within the ship to the location work, planet side and things like that, it's absolutely spectacular. It looks like something much grander than just a humble little fan film, a fan production. Once again, as I say, Gary has delivered, and I just was eating it up, and I just want that much more. This particular piece is actually 30 minutes in length. It's broken up into two halves, and but all as one uploaded video that you can watch in one sitting to get the full story. And the thing that he is masterful at in getting the performances out of the actor's cast, but also in his direction, is bringing about a story where characterization comes to the fore very much, and you can feel very empathetic and sympathetic toward the characters in even such a small stretch of time. And this is something that greatly impacted me, where we're only just introduced to these characters in this one single episode, and there are little sort of subtle aspects to their characterization, to the way they interact with each other, that brings about this empathetic sort of quotient where you end up feeling for them. And when the problem that arises and occurs in the story, that is very much sort of the central focus of the story, which has everything to do with some of the greatest, and longest standing Star Trek and science fiction tropes of, sort of causality and things like that, without wanting to get too much into spoilers. What I can say is I'm greatly sort of propelled by the performances of the characters, and I feel for the characters, especially I have to give special note to the characters of Commander Boltzmann and Brother Cost in this particular piece. I really felt for them, and I really enjoyed their discussion back and forth toward the early portion of the film, and then what ends up occurring, the problem they are then faced with, and how causality, sort of the time travel trope, plays into that, and the sort of, subverting expectations as to how the story's going to end up playing out. All of these things are just great facets and factors of this fan production that, again, it's why I started the video at the outset saying Gary O'Brien, the director of the piece, delivered once again. He wanted to put together something spectacular, and that would be resounding, especially for Star Trek fans, Trekkies, and fans most notably of the Star Trek The Next Generation era. And from, again, the cinematic quotient of this piece, down to the costuming and you know, the clever usage of the scoring and visual effects. I mean, the starship itself, being in orbit of the planet, it was spectacular. Every visual was spectacular. The costumes looked directly off the set of, hot off the presses of Star Trek The Next Generation. And even down to the communicator pin. This is, of course, a Voyager, sort of DS9 Voyager era pin that I got around the time when DS9 and Voyager were still on the air. And as you can see, it's very shiny and metallic and everything. I love it. But I'm actually envious for a fan production. They got the sort of genuine looking communicator badges from the Next Generation era that are more a matte color finish, so it's not glaring off the film cameras and everything. I want one. You know, where can I find one? I'm even like, I'm just scrutinizing the costuming and just so impressed with every single aspect of this thing. And again, I don't want to get into spoilers and you know, get too in depth with discussing how the story plays out, but there's also the aspect of how it explores the topics of religion and faith and science, and how you know, science, intellect, and faith and religion, they can be sometimes very divisive things, very conflictual things that sees them going head to head, you know, and fighting it out for a higher, you know, sort of appreciation sometimes in the minds, bodies, and souls of very conflictually minded people, which is just an unfortunate side effect of being human. But, you know, this sort of puts that under the microscope and gives you this impression, this sort of affirming impression by the end, that you don't absolutely need to have just one or the other, you know, choose one over the other or anything like that. You can actually, with a certain level of reasonability and sensibility, you know, you can actually have them both walk hand in hand in your life, and it doesn't have to necessarily be one or the other as a detriment, you know, to the other. And I really appreciated the sentiment of the story. Again, the exemplary performances, everyone who was cast in this was pitch perfect. I would love to see the further, you know, adventures of Captain Keller and her crew, and just the twists and turns and everything, the visual effects, again, the scoring, and all of it. It was just absolutely spectacular. I couldn't more highly recommend you check out The Holy Core from Gary O'Brien and his team, and I think he mostly worked on it, but he, you know, co-wrote it and directed the piece, and as well as Chance Encounter, his first Star Trek fan film, at least that I ever encountered, no pun intended, which was also very similarly exemplary and spectacular in all the same kind of ways. I just absolutely loved it, and I'm actually going to go watch it again after this video is uploaded. I enjoyed it that much. So again, I just highly recommend you take the time out of your day, if you are a Star Trek fan, to check this out, especially if you love the Star Trek The Next Generation era, because the authenticity, the love and the passion that was put into this project, it bleeds off the screen with just an absolutely, again, to use the term, spectacular execution of all of those things, you know, aesthetically and dramatically and all that kind of stuff. And Gary, 2 thumbs up once again, sir, if you happen to watch this video. I was very pleased, and I hope you are equally pleased with what seems, at least to me, to be a very resounding positive, you know, reaction to the film. And so, yeah, otherwise it'll be pretty much it for me on this. Hope this video finds you well, and I'll catch you all later. Live long and prosper.